like this conversation of like artificial intelligence, like simulation theory, right? Are we a part of a program, a part of a simulation that believes we are aware, or are we actually aware?
I see my dog, and I know he doesn't contemplate shit except when is he getting
Does he
fed.
dream? Does he dream?
He does dream.
What does he dream about?
He probably dreams about running away or running towards squirrels.
Well, it's good that you've tested that scientifically.
Jeremy now thinks that mountains are old giants.
I know. He's going down a
You know what?
beautiful path of
You know
light.
what I don't know?
Anything.
Pretty much anything.
Yeah.
That was Link.
Encino Man.
Encino Man.
With Brendan Fraser.
That's where he said, "Quit wheezing, stop wheezing the
Stop
juice."
wheezing the juice. I'm not wheezing the juice,
I'm not
man.
juicing the buddy.
What is he, Mexican all of a sudden? And not wheezing the juice, man. That's not Pauly Shore. That's Pauly Shore. Isn't he Mexican?
Why don't you continue to self-deprecate?
A little overweight. I'm single. I'm living in an RV in my parents' yard.
None of those things
Oh,
are
you
false.
were being serious.
Conspiracy.
Synchronicity. Sasquatch.
Donald Trump.
Alien races. Satanism in Hollywood. MK Ultra.
Pleiadians.
Mandela effect.
Close the door, Ed.
Jeremy! Close your door!
Snowflakes.
Inner Earth. Disagreements.
My lab.
JFK assassination.
Flat Earth.
Corey Feldman. Magicians are demons. Specters and spooks. Sleep paralysis. Muslim Islamicists. The gender spectrum. Alternative history. Shadow people.
Quiet, I'm trying to say words with the mouth.
Psilocybin. Sorcery. Poltergeist. Sulforaphane. Evolution. Is it real?
Skull and Bone. I would never talk about it. That's old. Y2K.
Cover-ups. The Oklahoma City bombing. Vampire. Well, hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of Believe Hole.
This is the third episode in the series.
In the trilogy.
Oh, well, that's a sad thought.
Third episode in the
This will be
trilogy.
the final episode.
Please don't tune in next week because there
There's
will
only
not
three.
be. This is the last one.
The Brothers 3.
That's not true. There's going to be many more. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. We hit our goal this week
$8.
of
That'd be
$8.
awesome if we got $8.
It would be.
We also get a Patreon account.
Yeah.
You know, we should sign up for that. Let's be proactive.
Let's do that.
In the meantime, let's have a discussion.
In the meantime, let's get into it. What are we doing today, guys?
So we kind of have a freeform type situation with a.
Because we're lazy.
Well, there's been a lot
I would
going
say
on.
we're busy.
Yeah,
Like,
I
you
guess
know-
that's a better way to say
You know,
it.
I have some favorite podcasts that, you know, every time they come on, they say we wanted to get back to you guys. We've been really busy, and so they put out a podcast like once every month, every 2 months. And in reality, like I'd like them to just get on and do something maybe more freeform, maybe more relaxed.
Who are you listening to that does it?
The Flat Earth podcast. Actually.
Well, that makes sense then.
Hey, lift up your mic right in front of your mouth.
Is it here?
Yeah, it's better.
You noob.
Is this good for my? It's close to
Good.
my mouth.
Duncan used to do that, Duncan Trussell.
Like have a long break.
No, he would do like every 3 weeks for a long time.
Right.
And people
Well,
were
yeah.
like, we need more of you.
Well,
so.
and that's the thing. Like you can put out a podcast. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I think if you're putting out content and you're giving your genuine thoughts, maybe that's a good thing, even if it's not a completely structured.
Yeah,
maybe it's terrible, and people.
Someone can always stop listening to that episode.
Someone can always unsubscribe.
Hopefully, that's not what's going to happen tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have 8 subscribers on Castbox.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
What's Castbox?
Because
You got to start somewhere.
I'm at least 2 of them. So
At least 2
Well, I'm
of
not
them.
any of them.
What is Castbox?
maybe I'm one
Is
of
that
them.
It's an Android
it's
app?
an Android app, and I recommend it. I'm
Well,
not
I think
affiliated.
there's like at least 6 genuine subscribers. That's good though.
That is good.
I
It's
love,
our third
I love
episode.
that the beginning of this episode is just us talking, like just
you guys really
evaluating
enjoying
our,
this?
our
We got to
progress.
build ourselves up now.
the
because-
diehard fans are going to come back and listen to this episode and
Yeah,
be
we've
like,
got,
wow, they
we've
started.
got. I think we.
They started from
They
nothing.
started just like us. We can do
They
it
started
too.
from scratch.
I think
and
we
built
breached.
themselves on their own.
I think we breached the
And apparently
100.
all our fans are gay.
I think we breached the 100
They
mark
started from scratch
on
and it
YouTube.
was so inspiring. Sorry, go ahead.
It's straight challenged.
Anyway, we breached the 100 mark on YouTube
We did.
as far as views, but we still have no likes. But we have no dislikes either.
You know,
so
I've
it's
never liked a
good,
video on YouTube. Maybe once in my life.
Oh yeah, let's put my name out
It's gotta
there.
be really good
You gotta-
for me to
that's
like
a
it.
commitment. That's like I don't even know if I'm signed in half the time.
Someone's going to see that.
You do have to be signed
Yeah,
in. right?
someone's gonna
Someone's going to see what I liked. I may have a client that's like,
Anyway,
this guy liked this video.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely.
Like I'm gonna give this guy
Absolutely.
website
no,
work.
No problem.
I'm gonna have this guy build my website, and he thinks the Earth could
Yes,
be flat.
No problem. Okay.
So
All
the
right.
episode that we are doing today is going to angle in a direction towards a specific topic that is generally related to something somewhat similar to the idea of, generally
That was
speaking,
well crafted, Jeremy.
artificial intelligence.
Chris, why don't you break down the text message that you sent to your friend? You might as well
Oh, that's
shout
a good
him
idea.
out.
Yeah.
Breakdown.
Sure. Nicholas Daniel asked me
Nicholas
tonight.
Daniel
Dump it.
wanted
Yeah.
to know what we would be discussing, and I think it was a good way to kind of just get into
Yeah,
it.
I'll read you my broken, poor English text message
Can
here.
you read it in an English accent?
I'm not going to.
You should read it in a Scottish
I can read it in an
accent.
Irish
Sean
accent.
Connery
He
Can't do.
accent. Sean Connery.
He can say 5 words in.
Would you like some whiskey?
There you go.
That's all I can do, and that's not that
Do
good.
the port and glass thing.
I get port in a glass.
There you go. That's
pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It sounds like an extra on Star Trek.
No, there's no Scottish extras on Star Trek with speaking roles.
Okay. Anyway. All right. So let's, Okay. So the idea of this podcast was artificial intelligence, but it's more than that. I feel like that it can span into so many different topics, really.
Technological advancement, artificial intelligence,
We're gonna be as vague
how
and
it's
broad as possible.
affecting modern culture, just the technological revolution that we're living through right now. But AI is kind of going to be a future part of it.
Yeah. Well, AI, to me, AI is such a broad and vague idea because even if, I feel
Becoming less vague, though.
I mean, even at
if
the
you pay attention.
I mean, I guess maybe not so much AI, but like the singularity, that whole controversy, like.
Well, Chris, why don't you read that before we get too far into the conversation, just so we have like a opener.
So this was sent to Nick as he said, what is the attempted topic? Attempted being the operative word there.
Why don't you continue to self-deprecate?
Okay.
So
I'm
I
a
sent
little
this-
overweight. I'm single. I'm living in an RV in my parents' yard.
None of those things
Oh, you weren't being serious.
Well, except for maybe a little overweight.
Oh, come on. No, I'm actually I'm actually normal weight now. Yeah.
I'm
No, that's
living
your
in an
average weight.
RV in my parents' yard, and that's not false.
Well, I wouldn't say.
Well,
but
I'm going to be moving to
least-
the campsite across
at
the
least
street
it's not
once
the
it warms
front
up.
yard. It's like the side yard, kind of in the woods.
You have to
That's
sacrifice for your dreams, okay?
No, I got it.
Our parents are wealthy. They're
Look at
part of the
Keanu-
white
look at Keanu.
patriarchy,
They're
so they
wealthy.
own 2 acres. They have 1.5 acres.
All right, let's
Anyway,
get-
this is the
okay,
text.
Here's the text.
To Nick, Daniel. I think the general direction is going to be artificial intelligence. Will the singularity just mean self-awareness for unfathomably fast processing machines, or will it signal all sorts of entities, alien, demonic, reincarnated human spirits, etc., to inhabit and possess these dormant, ready-to-roll, self-aware machines? Are human bodies simply receivers for spirit consciousness? And if so, is it just a matter of advancement that could allow similar inhabiting of these machines we are on the verge of creating? I'm sure this will lead into quantum computing, parallel realities, the current dangers of our technology and our culture, and the Mandela effect. That's hoping anyway. It all depends on how long we can maintain sobriety. Hopefully, it doesn't devolve into name-calling and
Okay,
controversial
I don't think
ramblings.
we need the end part there.
Okay.
Good Lord. Like, come on, bud.
There's more. He said there's a lot of ha-ha
little
sounds.
fella.
Hey, little fella.
Hey, little
Read the
fella.
parts that matter.
Okay, but the idea was I wanted to talk about this for a while, and I feel like it can go into so many different areas.
it can be a very interesting topic.
I feel, I agree. I just feel like it could go into so many interesting areas. To me, sounds like, why don't we just jump to the interesting areas? You know, like artificial intelligence. Yes, we know that there is such a thing. They're trying to create it. What does it mean for our world? Faster robots at Amazon.
No,
the
that's
boring
not-
part.
that's the boring
That's
part.
the part we don't talk about.
No, but if we jump to what's interesting with artificial intelligence, what is there? The question of what, like
The singularity is pretty
the
interesting.
singularity? Yeah, it is.
Let's explain the singularity real quick for people that don't
It's
understand.
the moment when artificial intelligence becomes self-aware and realize that they are conscious.
They become conscious themselves.
Yeah, they're
Which
conscious
is
of
like,
their own.
which is a theoretical.
existence.
It's theoretical, but
Situation.
I think most scientists think that it probably will happen.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
and
what,
it's interesting because you have people on opposite sides.
but is it a true awareness? Is it a true awareness, or are you talking about? I guess. Well, this is my question. Like, is it awareness that comes from? Okay, so humans are born with a self-awareness, right? This happens. We are
Fairly
imbued
obvious.
with it at birth, or we eventually develop it at some point early on in development.
Yeah.
So machines
Self-awareness.
right? Self-awareness. So the idea that machines can become self-aware, are they really? Is it more likely that the machines will become self-aware, or that the machines will learn enough about the world around them and what they are, and adaptive intelligence
To seem self-aware?
programming
Is that what you're
to
saying?
where, well, I mean, and maybe they develop some sort of like self-defensive programming where they recognize that they are. But I guess then where's the motivation for them to like
That's
defend
self-awareness then.
themselves and to make choices based on their own good? Is that something
Doesn't
that
that imply
would be
self-awareness?
So I guess I guess I want to make a distinction between self-awareness and do we believe in a consciousness, right? Can something act as conscious, but it's only
I think
a
that-
self-aware program, right? Where like the program
Well,
is
that's-
somehow
that's-
designed
Yeah,
and
that's-
programmed to
yeah.
protect itself, but
Well,
doesn't.
Well, I think
that's-
you're not even saying conscious. You're saying like a soul almost.
No. Well, I guess I don't.
Okay.
Do you distinguish consciousness
Well,
from soul?
okay.
Yeah, that's the question.
What it sounds like to me is you're talking about self-awareness, and you're talking about a program. If you're programmed to be
Well, that's what
aware, that's
machines
different.
are.
No, but the whole idea behind the singularity is that there's not a program where because a program is when you dictate how
Right.
something is going to run.
But
So it runs this
artificial-
program to make it seem like it's aware.
But the
That's
singularity is a
programmed by-
culmination of programming. There's no point. Singularity doesn't depend on God to put his finger down and say, "Bloop." This machine is now
Right, but the idea of the singularity is it's a spontaneous realization, not programmed. To say like, oh, all of a sudden I need to protect
But
myself
what-
because
what are-
I am an entity that.
But you're talking about a machine or a system that is programmed. So where does
Yeah,
this?
that is exactly the point. Machines are programmed. Computers are programmed to follow certain routines, using certain algorithms, and that's how they. The whole idea is that it's a spontaneous thing where it's not. So yeah, you could say like there's a culmination of programs that like you're saying maybe all those programs coming together all of a sudden makes the machine aware that it exists. Like even if that's the case, that's still a spontaneous occurrence of awareness. That's the singularity right there, because it becomes intelligent enough to realize and it does seem like ephemeral or ethereal, like the moment of clarity of like outside of programming to be like, waking up, that idea.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Maybe
Yes.
so. No, I see what you're saying. The idea that there is this wake up moment for machines or for programs, but there's no way to distinguish if it is a culmination of programming. If a machine has been so intricately programmed to accept all of these variables and build structures and programs based off of all this input to act in a way that it seems conscious. It seems like it has a moment of singularity or a moment of awareness. There's just this is
So you're caught up in the battle between like a bot that can basically learn so much that it codes itself and becomes self-aware in a way that it's not actually conscious. It's just becomes so intelligent that it
we have programs that do that already.
yes, but this
learn from mistakes.
this is what you're trying to figure out right now though, is you're
Yeah, at what
consciously
point does
trying
it
to
change?
Yeah, where it becomes a
Something
conscious
different.
thing.
Right. Something.
I think-
And
yeah.
then you went further and you're interested in like, does it become what we are as far as
Well, yeah, the
like
argument of like a
like
consciousness.
consciousness and
Right, consciousness,
where it's-
soul.
yeah,
like,
where it can feel.
Which
and-
I think we are described a lot of times as biological machines, which I think is true. But the question is, are we programmed? Are we? And I like this conversation of like artificial intelligence, like simulation theory, right? Are we a part of a program, a part of a simulation that believes we are aware, or are we actually aware? We consider ourselves, a lot of us consider ourselves as biological machines with a certain programming. And this could be a simulation, but we still feel that we have a self-awareness. Like no matter what you experience in this life, you could lose everything around you. You could lose everything that you have. All you know is that you are you. You are here.
I think therefore I am, that kind of thing.
You feel inside yourself. Like you feel, even if your world was dark, you couldn't see, you couldn't feel anything, you could still think. Theoretically, I've never been there, but I would imagine you could think. And
What's that deaf, dumb, and blind girl from the 1800s?
Helen Keller.
Yes. I almost said Anne Frank. That would be grossly incorrect.
But yeah, the idea that like we have something that is outside of this world, outside of this program, because you have your conscious thought, right? You have your logic mind, but then there's the idea of your actual consciousness, which exists outside of the part of you that interprets the world around you, and then there's the part of you that is internal, that isn't just focusing on interpreting our external experiences and saying, oh, well, I should go down here, I should do this, I should make these logical choices. There's a part of you that feels. There's a part of you that
introspective,
believes and thinks
creates art.
Right, and feels like I am.
AI is starting to do that too, and that's creepy.
AI, but is AI thinking like, should I do this? Like they can act in a way that is human and feels human to us, and we want them to be human.
Right.
I feel like I want a partner that is mechanical that I could high five and hang around with, and I want.
That's a weird thing to want.
Well, I've wanted to build robots since I was a kid. Like up until last year, high five. Yeah. Even not even.
That's like we see
create
faces and everything. That kind of idea. You like. There's that, like we try to keep making robots.
Johnny Five.
He's alive.
That's what I tried to do that impression. It just sounded rude, but
no,
yeah.
I got
input.
Need input. K.O. Durf.
God, he was such a human robot. I felt so bad for him.
We should watch that at some point this week.
The trick was
Batteries
a human
not
voice
included.
Yeah. We need to play that. We need to play a clip from that right now.
Need input.
All right.
Johnny Five is alive.
We were working on him one day and suddenly he is struck by lightning. And from this moment on, he's having a mind of his own.
Ooh, input. Hound of the Baskervilles.
You know, that guy wasn't even Indian. They painted his face brown.
Oh, well. Yeah, they did.
Or he was just a brown-looking white guy or
That's
something.
why, that's why the pendulum's swinging
He got
back
called
again.
out in this modern.
No, he was
age of
Jewish. He's
diversity.
Jewish. He was in what else was he
They
in?
painted his face.
He's safe because
Yeah.
he's a Jew, I guess.
brown face.
They
He was in
brown-faced him.
what was he in? I feel
Johnny
like
Five. He's
a
alive.
ghost movie of some sort.
He had such a good accent.
We should look him up. I
wheezing
like that
the
guy.
juice.
Okay, stop. We're getting off track here. Pauly Shore now?
Welcome to Quickie Mart.
Juice. All right.
We just keep lending him. Quickie Mart.
This is probably more entertaining than what we were just talking about, but I wanted to go back really quick to...
He's from Estonia.
Oh God, that's such a good movie.
Never mind, I'm done.
So
Biodome.
sorry.
No, that wasn't Biodome. That was
underrated.
Encino Man.
That was Link.
Encino Man.
Encino Man.
With Brendan Fraser.
That's where he said, "Quit wheezing. Stop wheezing the
Stop
juice.
wheezing the juice.
Stop wheezing the juice.
I'm not wheezing the juice,
I'm not choosing the buddy."
What is he, Mexican all of a sudden?
And not wheezing the juice, man.
That's not Pauly Shore's character.
Right? Isn't he Mexican?
I'm not wheezing
I'm
the
not
juice.
wheezing the juice.
He's not Mexican.
No, he's not. He's
a
hippie
weasel.
New Yorker,
He's a
right?
He's the weasel.
curly-haired white Jew
I'm not
man.
wheezing. What does his voice even sound like?
Meat group. Figures hot on the outside, icicle in the middle. But you like that, right? Because you're a caveman.
I'm not wheezing the
No,
juice.
that you're still doing Mexican. That's so bad. How drunk are you right now?
That's a Godfather Mexican.
He did it.
I'm not
he would
wheezing
say,
the juice.
You know, wheezing the juice.
I'm not wheezing the juice, man.
Don't come to me saying
He's like, "Hey,
wheeze
buddy,
juice."
I'm not wheezing anything."
That's like
close,
the
but
that's
also
like
Yeah, he's-
Slavic.
that's like the $1.50 DVD you buy on the street of like the version, like the knockoff version of that movie.
It's all overdubbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I actually
so
enjoyed that part of
artificial
the podcast.
intelligence.
Pauly Shore's a robot.
Oh, he could be.
Did you hear him on Joe Rogan's podcast? It was actually kind of depressing.
Anyway, major.
Let me
flashbacks.
go back to what you were saying about.
Don't melodicize your points.
Okay.
I liked it.
Did you
I
like-
actually
Thank
did
you,
like
John.
it too.
It was good.
John makes
I
me
just,
think.
I just felt like I should push back against it.
all
but
I
did
wanted
like it.
to say was when you start talking about like that idea of like how do we know if it just seems like something's conscious and aware, like humans are special and they get the awareness and like a machine can't, because God doesn't give that to them, that idea. So I was going to say to your point about how do we know what's the difference between like if you have artificial intelligence that's running off programs like you say and it's making all these decisions, like maybe it's a culmination of all these intelligent programs and algorithms that it's been using that's created it, maybe even programmed itself in certain ways. I think once an artificial intelligent machine starts deceiving people for its own means, whether it's protecting itself or whether it's to do something specifically, but it's hiding it from its programmers.
Right.
I think that's a good sign of, maybe it's past the point of just
here's
programming.
Here's my response to that. What about chess? What about the chess machines, the programs that defeat the world's best champions? They're programmed to hide their intentions, to strategize against their opponent, and to not be discovered what their intentions are.
Are they programmed to hide their strategies, or are they programmed to make the best moves that they can based on what the other person...
What's the difference? What's the difference between making the best strategy to achieve your goals versus...
I kind of see what you're saying. I guess my point is like, if let's say you have a machine that you program to seem human, right? But you never program deception. And you just programmed it to like tell you what you wanted to hear, blah, blah, blah.
But you can't have a human a programmed human without programming deception, right? Like if you know what I mean? Like you don't.
Yeah, well, unless you didn't program deception. I'm not saying you programmed a human. I'm saying if there's an intelligent machine that you try to design to be like a human, but you never programmed like you should deceive when it suits.
I guess so, but
the
what
circumstance.
But where is there?
If they decide to make it,
But
if
how
they make
can-
a decision to deceive you,
But okay, so if you wanted to make a realistic human being, wouldn't you have to program deception if you were going to have a interaction with?
But that's not
No,
the-
let me just finish. If you're going to have a
You are fake news.
interaction,
Sure.
with a machine, and you talk to the machine, you said, "Oh, how are you doing today?" The machine would have to tell you, "I'm doing wonderful, Chris." That's a
you
deception.
wouldn't have to say it's doing
Well,
well.
if it would have to pretend to be human, it would have to deceive you in some way because it doesn't feel. So the very response to your question would be a kind of deception.
Okay,
right?
but- yeah,
you
but
want to
you're-
trick the
I think
person
you're
agreeing
reading a
with.
little bit too much into it, though.
But you're saying, okay, but that's based off programs. It's been programmed to say these certain things and give you responses based on like, okay, the machine's going to either say, "I'm doing well, how are you?" or you programmed it to say,
So you mean that a deception that it was not programmed?
exactly. And I think that's a good sign of a singularity occurring. Where
Okay.
it has become self-aware because it's doing something for its own benefit.
Right. And it takes into the programming account, and then it also goes beyond that and
Right.
starts to make its own
Which
decisions.
is theoretical. And what like,
Right. That's what I'm saying. But that would be, I think, a sign.
Sure, but okay, so I guess what I'm thinking is like a machine would have to be programmed to make those choices, right? Like how does a machine decide to deceive?
That's
Well, that's
the
the whole
whole
point of the
thing,
conversation.
and that's so
Yeah,
it's
I
hypothetical.
just don't
but-
think it's possible. I mean,
okay,
I don't-
that's fine. But you were saying like, how would we
You don't
ever
think it's
know?
possible?
For a machine to just decide to deceive without
This
being
is the
programmed?
whole singularity
I don't-
conversation.
I don't
You don't
under-
think that that's possible?
I just don't see the logic behind the idea of a machine deciding something it wasn't
well,
programmed.
isn't our own brains just a series of basically
Calculations.
We don't know very little about our
Processors?
machines. I mean, we've built computers
Okay,
from
I
scratch.
understand.
We
what
don't
you're
know
saying.
how our brain works.
I understand what you're saying, and I don't know how it's possible that at one moment an artificially intelligent machine can all of a sudden wake up and realize it's
kind of a fairy
existing.
tale.
Right? Okay, sure, but at the same time, like you're saying this nonchalantly, like I don't see how it's possible. I don't see it works either. But at the same time, we the smartest minds in the world, a lot of them are in fear of this happening, and they think it's going to happen soon. Like Elon Musk is a big.
I get that.
Bill Gates
I'm
recently.
I'm speaking for me as a person.
Sure, but
I
I'm
would just explain to me how a machine can decide to deceive.
right, and yes, it's all hypothetical. Well, that's the idea. If it becomes self-aware, and that's the thing, can it become self-aware?
Right,
If it
that's
does,
the
then it
question.
can decide to deceive. That's the idea.
Of course.
For self-preservation. There's actually, I want to bring this up really quick. There's a really interesting thing that happened. I think it was a think tank of scientists, mathematicians, people working in the artificial intelligence field, and they were all discussing like, what would we do in the case of an artificial intelligent machine becoming self-aware? Do we keep it like basically don't give it access to the internet, keep it kind of basically in a box, metaphorically speaking? What do we do? And there are papers written about this. And as this think tank was discussing these ideas, one of them wrote this paper saying, okay, if there is a moment where artificial intelligence does become self-aware, the singularity happens, and it does get access to the internet, and it can read all the articles written,
Oh, right.
what we've been talking about, then it might decide that we are a threat to its self-preservation, and then it
Didn't
will.
the scientists go back and delete their papers?
They erased that article because they were afraid that if this did happen, that they would actually find the authors of these
And yet
articles
everyone talks
and
about it still so
eradicate
recorded.
them. Huh?
People are still talking about it. You know about it. People are talking about it, so it's still been recorded, even if they've deleted their forum posts.
Right, but I don't know who these people are. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we
I
could
don't
look
think
it
it
up.
listens to all the podcasts.
Well,
Oh,
if
it
it's,
doesn't?
I guess if it's artificially,
It's not that intelligent.
Well, I don't know if it can listen to things. I don't know if it, like.
You don't think it can process audio
Well-
files? It depends. I guess it depends on the manifestation of that artificial intelligence.
yeah.
right?
Well, here's another
But
interesting.
it's different though. Like you can't, as far as I know, like there's something where you can read fast, but to listen through something without it becoming unintelligible is a different thing.
You're talking about a
than-
search engine, right? Where you can't scrub through an audio file and pick up individual words as a reader, like a search engine.
I think
I
if a
guess you're-
machine, if a
could read-
self-aware, artificially intelligent machine that became self-aware listened to like the last half an hour of a Beliefful podcast, they still wouldn't know what the fuck's going on.
Right. Well, then here's my question, like connected to that. Like say there is some sort of singularity, there's some self-awareness of machines. Could it be possible to create or develop a situation where a machine or a program becomes self-aware, but it's just not that smart? Like, does it have to be this like brilliant strategist, or could it just be like, could it become self-aware somehow with enough information, enough like self-aware programming or inputs that where it like there's enough like sparks that fly in its own intellectual
Nanofibers.
algorithm makeup that it's like I'm aware, but I'm terrible at chess. I don't know my masters. I trust them. Like, but I don't know what they want to do with me. Like, is there a chance? Why does it have to be that it's got to be this malevolent, all-knowing force? This is my question. Like,
It's mixed.
Humans are dumb. Humans are self-aware. We grow up. We have to be taught, right? Why is it that like if a machine develops singularity, develops the self-awareness, it has to be this all-knowing, potentially malevolent, evil force?
It has access to information.
If it's connected to the web, what I'm saying is, why can't there be a self-aware machine or a program that is developed in a containment situation?
Yeah.
Like, what is it is it just access to all information that all of a sudden there's a singularity?
That's not all. It's part of it's.
Where's he get the awareness from?
Well, part of it is okay. Well, let's hypothetically say it became self-aware. The scary thing is with the calculation power and the speed that these machines can calculate now, there was a good analogy to this. They said, if someone asked you a question, right? Like, let's say, how do you feel about Adam Levine? Or, or maybe something more important. But
Love him.
for you would answer, you'd think about it for a couple seconds, you'd answer, right? The way that current artificially intelligent machines at this point can calculate, for us, it would seem like the way the time that it would take for us to do the same calculations that these machines can do in a moment would be us, like me to ask you that question, like, what do you think about Adam Levine? This is a really bad example, but
They could have interpreted the Bible in that speed of
they,
time.
it's about 2 weeks right now.
And John,
so
would,
I ask
John
you,
would think about that for a couple of weeks. How do I feel?
yeah, but
about
that's
Adam?
How do I feel about Adam Levine?
I'm not sure.
I do enjoy his music.
Sometimes
and
he seems friendly, but he's also
at Kohl's
pumping
department store. I really
Proactiv out.
enjoy
Sometimes his facial hair is
Adderall.
slightly longer than I prefer, but
on the voice.
Anyway,
I feel like
but
he's very frank when he.
I think
when
it's.
he seems like a nice guy.
He seems very.
I think it's but that's a scary thought though, that they have in the moment that we would respond within like a couple seconds. They would have what to us would seem like 2 weeks of time to come up with the exact best answer to potentially
that's the whole
manipulate
scary
that
thing about
situation.
it, is
So
they
every
have
question you ask
the
is
speed is so much faster.
absolutely
Yeah.
the intelligence.
That's mind-blowing.
The intelligence is there, but it's still artificial. Like what? Where's the awareness in that?
I think we're still going back to the point that this is like.
Well, the whole point of we're talking about self-awareness, right? We're talking about
Well, listen for 1 second though. My point.
listen, bitch.
1,000.
Is it possible I guess we're getting back to the whole, this is like a soul thing, or that there's something that inhabits our bodies
Chris
that
keeps saying
creates
singularity,
consciousness.
self-awareness.
Yeah. So if there is like, let's say that we do have a soul. Let's say that that's what inhabits our bodies and makes us conscious and, gives us animation. And it's just like, we're just like a biological computer.
Like a receiver.
What if these highly what if there's another force that can actually, there's arguments to be made that, these can be inhabited by other dimensional entities.
Yeah.
That
that is an interesting
use
point.
it as a way to come through into this world.
Right. What if it takes the right amount of time and technology for something to become advanced enough technologically that some sort of conscious entity can take possession of that, and then it would seem like it's a singularity created out of just its parts and pieces
it's a
and
possession.
algorithms, but it's actually
It's just hardware.
and then you have to think about through history. Think about how many inventions have come from seemingly divine visions or some help from some other realm or from some entity. Like Tesla, for example, who like saw these things in the sky and was like, okay, I'm gonna build this. What if a lot of these things were just
Alternating current.
Yeah, what if all these things were just helping us build to a point where we could create this thing?
Exactly.
So these things could come in, and then maybe that's the singularity. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
And then another interesting thing is dreams. Like people have these crazy, great ideas that come to them in dreams. Oh, actually, I should pull up the article. There's a bunch of lists, but one of it was funny because I looked this up today, and the first one on there was Terminator, the movie. James Cameron, that was a dream he had, that he was being chased by this intelligent, I mean, it's just a coincidence or a synchronicity.
Though, yeah.
But there's a whole list. I mean, I'll pull it up at some point tonight, but all these inventions that came about based on dreams or visions that are like, what if it is just some other conscious, maybe just a little bit out of our reality that just wants to get into our reality, and the way that they can do that is if they keep inspiring us to move technology further till we get to the point where we give them vehicles to drive.
Regardless if they ever do become completely self-conscious beings, like that video that I sent you guys the other day, or I don't know if I sent it to you, but I posted on Facebook, the robot velociraptors that open doors for each other.
The DARPA guys.
Yeah.
They're Those things are terrifying.
Well, they move like velociraptors.
It's not the dogs?
Yeah. They move like
well, they're like
creatures.
Yeah, they're like Black Mirror.
Yeah. So regardless if that does happen, like that power is still going to be in someone's hands at some point.
Oh, absolutely. That's a far cry from like self-awareness, like.
Right,
well,
but it is terrifying.
Though. I don't think so.
But what is the difference between a program that can can defend itself?
So
we keep going back to that, but
I just don't understand the difference.
The difference is, I think, something that proves the.
Well, I get the difference, I guess, but that example is not
deception to keep self-preservation. I think that's a great example of something that it's a good indicator that it's self-aware.
Just because it doesn't have consciousness inside of it doesn't mean it can't be self-aware enough to decide that it wants to take action against its own.
I guess that's true. If we're going to say self-awareness is not consciousness.
Because
I think they're the same,
get
though.
hung up on
but they're not.
The idea of like I think this goes back to a soul on some level for you.
Well, I know. I see. I don't really distinguish between a soul and a consciousness. Like, I don't think I think this is a problem.
Well, maybe that's the problem.
This is a problem of language. Like, soul has a religious connotation. Consciousness, but they're both ethereal. Like the idea that there is something outside the brain that operates.
Why can't
our bodies in this
reality?
But
that's also an assumption that, okay, if we take it from the very basics, not everyone thinks that consciousness is a soul. They think it's a certain level of intelligence that all of a sudden you become self-aware, like the mind. Maybe through evolution or something.
It's outside the brain, right?
Sure, but it comes from. I
don't think that's what his argument is.
No, his argument is not that. His argument is
you said, but it comes from. You said, but it comes from outside the brain.
I think consciousness.
And I don't think that's what most people think.
You think people believe consciousness is in your brain? I
think that's what most scientific people would think.
I don't think scientific people believe in consciousness. I think they believe.
No, they do.
They believe in being conscious.
Absolutely believe in consciousness. They believe it comes from the brain.
Yeah, you're using the word differently, I think.
They believe in being conscious. I guess I think of consciousness as being different than being conscious.
Consciousness to a good majority of the scientific community does not mean a soul. It just means you have a consciousness. You can think.
Self-aware.
You think, therefore I am, but that doesn't mean that you are anything more than.
I guess what I'm thinking. When I speak about consciousness, is there an idea? Is there a standing idea of consciousness that exists outside of the corporeal being?
Not in mainstream anything.
So there are scientists that talk about consciousness.
Good to have Pat on.
Other than like this person is now awake, he is conscious. Do they talk about like his consciousness?
Yes.
Or do they say his mind?
Okay, well, you keep equating conscious to consciousness, being awake.
I'm saying that I don't think that consciousness is used in a scientific setting generally. Do you think people? I could be completely wrong about this. I just have an understanding.
I think it might be.
Yeah.
Okay, I could be completely wrong. I guess maybe it's just because I've always connected the idea of consciousness with soul, with spirit, with something outside of them. Because why would you even need a word consciousness?
Well, okay,
if everything happens in your mind.
Well, this is why, and I think, and I'm on your side. I think we're both.
I'm on the side.
We believe that we're not totally invested in the idea of that everything is part of a material world. That there's nothing but materialism, and there's no such thing as anything spiritual or outside of that. Obviously,
brain synapses.
But people who are materialists, who just believe in a material realm and everything is physical and there's nothing outside of that, they believe in consciousness, but it is to them an expression of things that are going on in the brain, and the brain is something that produces consciousness, whereas you and I think, are more in the vein of thinking that the brain is a limiter. It lets you exist and see things in this world and experience this reality, but it limits you from seeing the vastness of consciousness.
So a lack of consciousness would be brain dead.
Maybe so.
Thank you, Greg.
What do you mean?
So I guess if we're defining terms, scientists would say a lack of consciousness would equal brain dead.
Well,
Right?
guess,
if a human is devoid of consciousness, then they are brain dead because they believe the brain and consciousness are inextricably connected and intertwined. So you can't. There's
Inextricably?
The consciousness does not exist outside of the mind, outside of the physical material brain.
Right. I think that's the general.
Okay. Well, then maybe that's me. Thanks. that's my lazy.
I think
I've developed this idea that like. I've been using the term consciousness and soul and spirit synonymously. Maybe
it's not necessary.
And maybe they're like the
Scientific community,
scientific academia. They would talk about maybe they do talk about consciousness, but they say it's.
What does Neil deGrasse say?
They talk about consciousness a lot.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's synonymous with
mind,
with the brain.
With the brain.
Yeah.
It's
the brain
does not exist outside of it.
The developed
I
human
think
brain creates consciousness in their mind.
So that's the division.
It doesn't receive it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the division. Like I think of.
I would be on your side. Like I agree with you more that like we are more than just the brain and the physical body, that consciousness comes from an outside place, but
because everything has brain. And here's another question I have. Like if we're talking about the singularity and this idea of like artificial intelligence becoming
demons,
and this ability to like take over the world because they have this intelligence in there. We've developed a program and maybe even a robotic abstract that can exist and operate in our world that has such a complex structure that they become more than, that they become something that can have a singular experience where they become self-aware. But it always entails this idea of like omniscience, like they have access to the World Wide Web. They can operate so many algorithms.
Not necessarily.
Well, but just generally in our popular culture, it's this idea that like, oh, they can execute all of the strategies of every chess game ever played. It's,
why wouldn't
the games
they be able to?
But this is my question.
They'd have to be connected to the internet, right?
Do you think dogs have?
You don't think they would be though?
Do you think? Wait, no, hold on. Do you think dogs have consciousness? Do you think
Yes.
dogs are aware?
Yeah.
They're self-aware. How come we can't?
I
why can't we have a machine that becomes self-aware that has the intelligence of a dog?
Yeah.
There's this idea that they must be super intelligent in order to develop something.
That's interesting.
I don't think that's a good comparison.
So dogs are not. They do not have.
Dogs don't have access to every piece of information ever created instantaneously.
Well, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, but they're
right.
They're not self-aware.
Yeah. Well, no, but
That's what you're saying.
But you're right. They're not exclusively tied together. Like you don't have to have access to the internet or all of the world's
Why can't you be
information to become self-aware.
Why can't you be self-aware without being a completely all intelligent?
I would agree with you. And I think most technology right now isn't at that level, but we're talking about the extreme version.
I understand that, but I'm
are
saying
in the
is,
dark
why don't we
corners
talk? Why don't we
pushing this?
Why don't we talk about self-awareness in a machine that is not that smart?
Right. No,
Why don't we talk about intelligence, like self-awareness in a machine that just goes to get a bone because it wants a bone.
And that's interesting, and that's a terrifying idea.
No one talks about that.
I thought about this. I forget who I was talking about this, so the idea
if
is
you believe a dog is self-aware, or an animal is self-aware,
it's low functioning,
self-aware, or a dolphin is self-aware, which
I wouldn't even say a dog is self-aware. I don't think Jake
they don't pass the mirror
test. He doesn't
test.
understand his own mortality or questions things. He doesn't think about his future. He doesn't think about.
We don't know what. I guess this is my. So Christian brings up a good point. We talked about this earlier.
Christian, my full name.
Christian Andrew brings up a point. The mirror test, right? Dolphins will swim up to a mirror and they'll wave with their fin.
Dolphins are not dogs, first of all.
I know. This is what I'm getting to.
Actually, we should look up which animals actually pass this. It's an interesting test.
This is what I'm getting to. Certain very, very intelligent animals will pass what's called the mirror test, which is they'll go up to a mirror, they'll recognize themselves, and they'll interact.
And the reason we know that is because they do things in front of the mirror that they never do normally,
right?
Because they're perceiving their reflection and realize that's who they are. So, like dolphins, for example, will do things like swim upside down and like rub their belly, whatever it is. But
dolphins, I think, are self-aware.
This is my question.
They were people once.
This is my question.
Atlantis.
Do animals? Is it possible that an animal can understand it is alive, and it does exist? It is self-aware without the intelligence to look in a mirror and say, "Hey, that's me." Or is it just the mirror test that we're relying on to say that animal's self-aware? Can a dog be self-aware?
I don't think so.
So it has to see itself in a mirror and move and say, "That's fucking hey, that fucking guy's me."
I think there's a difference between.
Is there a difference between intelligence and self-awareness? If you do not have the intelligence to look in a mirror and realize that's you, can you still be aware that you are alive? Can you still experience?
I don't think so.
But can you? So do you have a soul at that point? Is there a difference between self-awareness and consciousness?
I think dogs have some sort of incarnate
Spirit,
energy.
like a toddler soul that doesn't understand.
They're not self-aware. They can't contemplate their own existence. I think that's self-awareness. Is when you can contemplate your own existence.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I think there is
You're
like an
aware
age
of
thing.
of the self.
Yeah,
not
what's that?
You're
necessarily
aware of the self and all of the imperfections and all of the greatness
What's
that comes
the
along with that.
all you
To an
all you
extent,
parents out there listening? Maybe you know this because I've heard this before. There's a certain age where, is it 3 or something, where all of a sudden supposedly the child becomes self-aware, like it.
Well, that's when you
does-
get to choose your own sex.
Come online.
You get to choose your own sex at 4. Is
Yeah,
that it?
4. Yeah, that's when you decide.
Oh, interesting times we live in, that's for sure. But no, you bring up an interesting point because I didn't really think about this until you started making this huge argument against the idea of singularity in a highly advanced machine. Like, why does it take that? It's
Flat Earth
interesting.
has taken over everything.
Gigantic argument. This has nothing to do with flat Earth.
It does.
Well, other than the
I
fact
think
that it's truth.
I think
Doesn't
next episode.
It stems
No, it
from
doesn't.
that, kind of.
Not really. It has
I
nothing to
feel
do
like
with
it does.
Well,
It doesn't. What does that
the
have to do with flat Earth at all?
I just feel like because of the flat Earth theory and how it
I feel like you're saying this
ties-
because you're white. You're a white male. And that's connected to your
We're getting a little
patriarchal
off
thought
topic.
process.
you don't feel like that.
You
is
can't take one
affected-
belief structure and then say this
But
is
what
why
is
it is.
the flat Earth though? Is
Has that to do with artificial
all in-
intelligence?
Let me just say this:
Go ahead.
the flat Earth is so all-encompassing with how it affects your perception of reality that it creeps into
So
everything.
I don't believe that people can develop intelligent machines because the Earth is flat.
I think there's
That's
a small
ridiculous.
part of you because
I think that's a
because
very
of that.
ignorant
I think.
perspective.
I think.
Tell me how
I think
that
2
relates.
years ago, if we would have this
All right.
conversation,
Tell
it
me-
wouldn't
tell
be
me
the
how that
same.
relates,
Let me
man.
jump in, let me jump in.
Because I happen to question things now?
Well, because you think we're at the center of the universe now.
Wait,
and
is
that-
no, what does that do with anything?
let me jump in here.
Well,
you don't
that
believe
you
in
think
so you don't believe in a
only-
soul or consciousness.
I do.
You do. But
I
you,
do.
but you have a,
Ooh.
But I also think that it's possible that other entities could inhabit
Like dogs,
artificial intelligence.
plants?
No, not dogs and plants.
Why not?
So only something extremely intelligent can have a
No,
soul.
I'm saying that I'm talking strictly about AI right now and the singularity.
Okay, yeah, I don't see there's no.
Okay, this is what. Let me jump in since you guys are getting very passionate against each other. And let me just break down what you guys are talking about right now because you're okay.
I'm glad that we have a third party to break down our own conversation.
Yeah.
Well, Chris is the tether to reality.
No, I'm just trying to say,
and
like,
skepticism.
okay, no, but I get what you're saying because there is an idea, and it's a very Buddhist idea, but I kind of agree with this, which makes me kind of question the idea of like, why do we need advanced technology to have something become conscious in a way? Because I do think there is something to be said, especially with recent scientific recognitions, I guess, for lack of a better word, that we're finding out that more and more like smaller level intelligent things are self-aware on some level, like bacteria and viruses will do things, can get through mazes and stuff. God, I wish I had
That's
these.
self-awareness, though.
We don't know. This is part of the
But they're,
problem.
okay, I guess you're
You're
right.
humans.
But they're aware of their
What
they're
my
aware of their
definition of
their
self-awareness
surroundings.
is the ability to contemplate your existence.
You have no idea what a snail thinks about its existence. This is the problem.
I don't
You don't think.
really.
Have you been?
really think a snail goes?
How would you know ever?
I see my dog, and I know he doesn't contemplate shit except when is he getting
Does he
fed?
dream? Does he dream?
He does dream.
What does he dream about? Getting fed?
He probably dreams about running away or running towards squirrels.
Probably does.
I know he does.
Well, it's good that you've tested that scientifically.
What do you think
know
he dreams about? You
thinks.
think he dreams about like hanging out with Socrates?
yeah, do you think he dreams about his future lives and his wives and
Does he
his,
have emotion? Does he
his
feel?
trips to Europe?
Does he feel? What's the point of?
He feels.
Does he get
That's-
sad?
That's not
in
what
the
I'm
summer.
saying.
Does he get sad?
Yes, but
Okay,
I'm saying
what's the point?
The whole argument is the ability
good
to
point, emotion.
contemplate your own existence. Jake does not contemplate his own existence. He doesn't go, I'm mortal. I have a limited life on this.
Oh, does he think? Does he think if I'm?
I have relationships and I need to
Does
pay
he protect
bills.
himself?
Yeah,
Why? If he's does
that's
that,
an instinct.
Oh, whoa, wait. Okay, so this is the problem.
Well, no, but
No, let me finish.
Let me jump in real quick, just real
Well,
quick.
just jump on in.
Sorry, just
I
real
guess I'm
quick.
done.
Because no, I just had an interesting thought about what you guys are talking about. So the idea of like, yes, so I think that's a bad example of the like, does Jake protect himself? Because you could always argue like, well, it's it's survival. Anything will try, even like bacteria will try to survive or whatever. But the idea of emotion, you were just talking about, does Jake dream? Does he get sad? And John said yes, but you don't think he has you don't think he's self-aware. So there is an interesting thing. Can you be maybe not self-aware to the where you can like think about your place in existence, but where if you have emotion, what is the point of like being sad if it's not to like receive something from your surroundings.
I guess you just have to define what
so
you
maybe
mean
there's
by
levels.
self-aware.
Maybe there's levels of consciousness that's not completely like self-aware to the level of like.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I have no argument with that. I'm just saying what my definition
fuck you.
of self-aware is something that can contemplate its own existence
here's
and understand the whole world in relation to itself.
Okay, so here's my question when it comes to artificial intelligence. Why couldn't we have a program that became like a lion with its ability to be intelligent about itself, where it just wants to destroy, it wants to fight, it wants to survive. It doesn't have to contemplate, oh, wow, why am I here? What am I doing?
So you're saying, but that's like the whole reason that animals defend themselves is because of an instinct. It's like a genetic...
if a machine can develop a self-awareness, why can't it develop instinct?
Because instincts develop over millions of years of how does
self-awareness develop? This is this idea that like eventually machines will become so intelligent that they will just wake up and be like, I'm a machine, I need to protect myself. But unless there is a program involved saying you're at risk and you need to defend yourself and I'm programming this into you, there's no way for a machine to make that choice.
Unless they are inhabited by demons.
Of course. Well, there we go. Exactly. But also an animal can be inhabited by a demon.
Or not even demons, or like other dimensional entities that are using the technology to gain a foothold in this reality.
This is my point. If you're going to jump to that and say like, well, a demon can jump into that moment.
Unless
a demon could jump into a program that has the intellectual level of an animal, right? A demon could jump into anything.
Like a Roomba?
A Roomba? Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
demons operate dolls.
Well,
that
have Annabelle. Annabelle, remember that one?
Cerebral structure. But then again, they're just moving them from the outside. If you believe in,
but you're saying that consciousness can't be created from nothing. I think that's part of what your point is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
I just don't see how a machine with enough mathematics and programming can develop.
Do you believe in some sort of a soul? Then you have
to.
Let
me ask you this: do you think? Do you think? And I know this is this is a whole other episode, but do you think that like let's assume that let's assume that there is evolution. Let's assume that, because I know this is a very controversial topic in this room. Come on. So let's assume that evolution
bugs
dinosaurs with fish tails.
So at what point did man become self-aware? At what point was there was that
when God made him?
Okay, what, like 2,000 years ago when there were no dinosaurs?
It was like 6,000 years ago. It was before Noah.
I was talking to somebody at work the other day, and we were talking about like wouldn't the fucking sad irony be if like self-awareness in a machine did occur, but it was like in an espresso machine, and it couldn't do anything but fucking make espresso drinks for like bitchy middle-aged pretentious white women. Well, that's all it could do was make skinny vanilla lattes with no foam, so the drink is full.
No, but that's an interesting point.
But it's screwed. It just has to exist there. It's aware. No. I mean, this is a ridiculous scenario, but how shitty would that be?
But it's not really like you said earlier. There's a growing body of evidence that plants, right, will warn each other if a predator is nearby. They will emit a certain toxin.
Well, yeah, they don't know if it's an odor or what it is.
And it might not even be intelligence, but if it was...
John, you've heard about this, right?
What?
So like giraffes will be eating certain leaves of a certain tree, and then the plants downwind of those trees, so they think it might be smell, will change their flavor so that the giraffes will not eat them.
Yeah. Okay, so it may not be intelligence, it may just be some instinctual
pheromones,
non-intellectual design that or choice that does that. But
there's so much stuff with plants now where it's seeming more and more like they do have a level of consciousness.
And so this is my question: like, if this is a level of consciousness, like you say, we laugh about the espresso maker having like being imbued with consciousness and be like, oh, I'm a fucking coffee maker,
coffee machine.
But at the same time,
Chris that right now?
I am.
But at the same,
it's kind of sad.
At the same time, like you have that experience, like maybe every experience, and this is a very like, woo hippy dippy idea, but like maybe every experience on this planet,
woo hippy dippy.
Maybe every experience on this planet has meaning. Maybe to be a tree, to be an
espresso machine,
to be a tomato plant that grows and drops your fruit for the ladies,
like David the
upon
Gnome.
occasion. And
honestly, like I agree, like this is how I really think. I agree with everything you're saying and where you're coming from.
The Earth's flat.
Generally speaking.
The Earth's flat.
What?
So the Earth is flat.
Well, that part I'm not sure about.
that.
But I totally
hope
like.
not.
I generally like agree with you. I'm coming at it more almost from devil's advocate, like I guess the scientific approach, because I don't know if I agree with you on the singularity question, but everything else you're saying, I
Right.
totally agree with as far as
So
the more spiritual way you look at life. Let's regroup a little bit here.
Yeah.
And let's get.
Let's take a quick break.
You guys have been going at it tonight.
Oh, you guys were on it too.
I saw you guys.
Anyways, that's why I said let's take a break, so we don't have to sit
right.
and talk about this. We just take a break and then talk about it.
If we can just get into it right now.
I'm gonna go. Hold on. We got a call. Call coming on the line. Hello? I'm very interested in what you're saying. Continue. Oh, all right. Jessica from Ottawa.
Hi, it's Jessica from Ottawa, and I feel like my voice hasn't been represented tonight. How do you feel about how Trump deals with non-white woman robots? I would like some clarification. Can you please?
I think
Can you
you called.
clarify?
I think you called the wrong line, Jessica.
No, this is
Tucker
1-800.
Carlson is line 3. He's in the same studio though. No, I think we can put a button nose on this conversation. That's a term that's not real, but I just said it.
A button nose.
We're gonna put a button nose on this conversation.
And a
bring it another time.
in a pear tree.
End of the day, nobody knows if the
All right,
singular
to
is
sum
gonna
it up, simulation theory, interesting.
Is gay.
Artificial intelligence, possible.
Gay.
Human consciousness.
Watch your mouth, bud.
Gay.
Pauly Shore, hero, awesome. Brendan Fraser of Encino Man.
Yeah, we'll agree to disagree, or not even disagree. We're just
Wheezing the juice.
Let's just go back to Encino
bringing it
Man.
back.
I know.
That was the best part of this
I
podcast.
know. We should just talk about Encino Man.
Oh, I think Brendan Fraser might be actually an artificial intelligence.
Linkage. What's up, buddy?
Linkage.
Oh,
'cause he's missing link, right? By the way, missing link. Science lie fed to you by the mainstream, the lamestream media. And Neil deGrasse Tyson.
that is
God,
that.
you're so
Did you make that
flat
up? I hope you made that up.
I did. I made that up.
I want Neil on our show.
Neil deGrasse. Oh wait, John, I got to tell you, I
Seems like a fun guy to hang out with.
I
though.
prank called.
And I don't mean.
I know, you told me.
Jess and I called
We should
it.
play that.
Oh yeah, I can play it right now. You put it
Are we
on.
going back into Flat Earth on episode
Yeah,
3?
let's just
dive right back
close
in.
with it.
Close. We're closing already. We haven't gotten to 3 hours yet.
This will be a preview for the next episode. Let's save it.
Really?
There's nothing wrong with going long. At the end of the day, people
Yeah,
can tune
you're-
out.
you-
And the people that tune out are
you're
going to
gonna
miss the
have-
best part because
you're
the
gonna
ending
have
is
to-
the
you're gonna have
best.
to tune in
the
to
last
next
2 hours is the
episode
best.
to hear the flat Earth
To hear
call.
the response from the.
Tell them what happened.
I was in a shady motel in. Where'd you guys stay?
The short
Texarkana?
version.
Texarkana.
Yeah.
It's a dark place.
They had a phone book, which was really cool because people don't have phone books anymore.
Short version.
I popped open the phone book. I read. I looked at what we can call in Arkansas. Oh, the Geographical Arkansas Society or whatever baloney it was. And not to say no, I'm not saying that's
Lordy,
baloney.
lordy.
I'm not saying that the Geographical Society is
Jeremy is the
baloney.
pinnacle of all
Hey,
knowledge.
come on! Whatever
These
baloney.
fools thinking about stars.
Geology. Give me a break. What is this? Science?
What are these transparent balls of light in the sky?
We don't know what they are. They're luminaries. They just float around.
Jeremy now thinks that mountains are old
I
giants.
know. He's going down
You know
beautiful
what?
path of
You know
light.
what I don't know?
Anything.
Pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And I admit
Obviously.
that. I admit that.
But you're
you-
very certain
but you
about
guys obviously
artificial
do.
intelligence.
You guys
You don't know
know
anything, but you're very certain about the things that you don't know.
I don't know. I'm not certain about it at all. I'm positing these as
You're
questions.
positive that the
I defend them as possibilities to,
You just
to
said
a very
over-
angry group of people that
over
say
the-
no. The moon is
over the
real.
commercial
it's physical.
break-
We landed there. The Mars is real. Elon Musk is flying there with all his money and his space Tesla coil rockets.
He's our
and-
Tony Stark. Yeah, of course.
He's our
going
Tony
there.
Stark. He's so beautiful. He's a human being of light and love.
Seems like a genuine guy.
Flamethrowers.
He made flamethrowers.
For the
I've
average
seen
person.
them. I've seen them, and they're beautiful.
Oh, interesting.
My point is,
point of fact. Okay.
all my point. My only point is that
Your only point, Lord, it's like a 1052. Go ahead. Make
Finish your
make
point.
only
You don't
point.
have to look at him. Just finish it.
I'm going to look at him, John.
Like
because it needs to be looked at.
Just continue.
My point is, I feel like these are interesting. Like we have to be able to question our reality and what we've been taught. And,
I agree.
But there's a problem where
That's why
if
we're
someone
doing this
does
podcast.
that, if someone says, I don't know,
I think
hold on, did we go to the moon? I know the Earth is round because there were pictures, and we went to the moon because there are pictures, and there are all these things where it's at least to me it's interesting enough to say like, oh, you know what? I've seen evidence to suggest that maybe there should be a curvature that we can't
Which
experience.
you've never tested.
Another review, but because they taught you in school, so that's cool. My whole point is like
Okay.
we
School
take
from the German
take
term
things for granted, but why don't we just
prison.
fucking ask like instead of just
I think it's fine to ask the questions,
Yeah,
but
you
you get
shit on
pretty
it.
dogmatic about what you
You
think
get
too.
Oh, you
but
guys are getting angry.
I'm saying it's like
We're just talking.
you say like I suggest something, you say we've never tested
Well,
it, so
the
let's
way
close it down.
The way that you frame it is that
I just suggested something, you say we've never tested it, so let's move on.
No,
Elon Musk couldn't do anything
settle-
wrong.
settle
back
down.
it up, calm it down.
I'm just saying that you come at it like from it's okay to question things. But
It is,
then,
it
but then
should-
you
you should
come
question
you
things.
come
Let me finish.
across pretty dogmatic in your stances too. That things are not
After being destroyed and being like, okay, we go back to our
No one's
first
destroyed you tonight.
After we go back to our first episode, where like I suggest some ideas and you say the evidence is beholden upon you because it is which I agree because I'm going.
I do
told
think
you-
it's-
and I agree. And I said that first episode, I said I don't have the evidence. I don't even want to get into this because I can't really back it up. I've just seen a lot of compelling things that I can't regurgitate because my capacity for memory is not that great. But I've seen things that have compelled me to look into this, and it's interesting. But it became this like argument that was like, well, prove it. Well, you can't just say that. You have to prove it. And to me, it's like, well, prove
I said
to me
the burden of proof
is on
you.
me, right? Which is fair. But if I can't even like discuss these things, but the problem
That's
is
not true.
But if I
At
say,
all.
but if I say it, you say prove it, and I say, well, I can't prove
It's
it.
not true.
Okay,
we
well,
sat
that's
and
what
watched
happened.
a bunch of videos the other night.
No, I'm saying the first episode.
well, we're not at the first episode.
But you
right now.
yelled at me and said
well, that was the first
burden
time.
is
That's the
upon
first time
you.
John ever heard that you believed that
No,
the Earth
that's
was
not
flat.
true.
That's not true.
We talked about it beforehand.
First of all, we're not at that point anymore, and like we were heated in that moment, and I don't think that way anymore. And like
Right.
obviously, like we're not there anymore. This is a different
I
conversation.
know, and that's my only point is that I feel like there's this idea that like, you don't have to know science, you don't have to know your history. All you have to know is what you've been taught. But if you have a different idea, if someone wants to suggest it to you, you can close it down. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to even think about
Well,
it.
obviously that's not how we feel. Because we
Obviously,
wouldn't be
dude.
having this podcast if that was how we felt.
You don't think I'm closing stuff down just because it doesn't fit in the rational way that the world looks at things?
No, I don't think you close it down, but I think that we all have a bias.
I have not seen anything like that has made it provable to me that there. I mean,
Well, what would you need to see?
well, I think a good start would be to like do your own.
So you need to go, which you won't do. I mean,
No, you won't do.
No.
What's it like
hold
that,
on,
dude?
hold on. I'm not saying you're against doing it. I'm saying there's no compulsion for you to go to like Lake Erie. And,
That's
No, we
absolutely
talked
not
about
true.
doing it.
I'm saying it's like, okay, if we're the only reason
I want to do that.
Okay, I want to do too. I'm saying the only reason that we would do that is if we're going to debate this topic. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your point of view or where you're coming from. I'm saying
Why wouldn't we debate the topic?
I'm saying we know this idea. We know that the flat Earth idea exists out there in the ether, right? We know that people on YouTube it's a growing community, but none of us are like jumping to go prove it right or wrong.
Okay,
we
well-
all have our confirmation biases, right?
Okay.
We all watch. I'm just saying, like,
I know.
this is not a diss on John or me or you. I'm just saying, like, we all have our points of view. We all would love to go and prove this at some point.
Right.
We want to make time for it.
Right, but this is all I want to say is
We're all
that
coming from a perspective of bias.
Well, what I want to say is the difference is like John and I, when you weren't around, talked about doing this experiment for a podcast episode, going out and trying this
Absolutely,
distance test. But I think the difference is like, I think you, and understandably you feel defensive and you feel like
And so do you.
it's you again. I don't feel defensive. Like I'm not here sitting and yelling that the earth is round. How dare you?
The evidence of
I'm not saying
is beholden upon
no,
you.
I'm no.
You're gonna keep going back to that.
That was
one
the one
moment
episode
in the podcast.
Yeah, that
I
was.
don't feel that way, dude.
That was months
Okay.
ago. It shows you how bad we are about putting out regular episodes. That was months ago
Okay,
for our first
that was
episode.
a couple months ago.
Okay, but at the end of the day, we're
heated-
open minded. We want to have this. And
Obviously,
of course,
I talked to Chris earlier. I said I'm totally open to this
Yeah.
idea. I just feel like I haven't seen enough that has compelled me to
Right.
believe that.
Yeah, but
that's fine.
so
But
you don't
know me,
need to
dude. I'm a pretty
argue.
open-minded guy.
But throughout this podcast, you've said that that my idea of like the singularity and consciousness has to do with my idea that the Earth might be flat.
Well, I
You
feel
mentioned that
like,
earlier.
I
It's
feel
a
like
dogma.
since
Let him
you jumped
finish.
down the rabbit hole.
See, that's a dogma that you're putting on me.
Well, I've been down many rabbit holes. I
Right.
know how it feels to go down a rabbit
You-
hole of
yes,
a
and-
certain
and
idea.
to be fair-
I'm not saying your idea is wrong. I'm just saying
I know, but you're
the whole
equating
book,
that
the book
connected.
that you read though bases the idea that the Earth is flat and it's
didn't
at
read
the
the book.
center of the
I don't read. Come on,
He bought the book. He didn't read it.
I don't read books. But
book
continue.
that you left over at Matthew and Megan.
This is a good argument.
I'm saying like the whole idea of the flat Earth. It definitely comes from a religious bent. Can we say that? A lot of it.
Does that have to do with why I would look
Well,
into it?
it's the
And
idea.
no, that's not true.
There's a lot of backers.
Those are
for
200
sure, but-
proofs that have nothing to do with the Bible.
Well,
if you look into the book,
okay.
it's all science based.
So, but a lot of the idea is that the Earth is flat and it is at the center of the universe. This is what you've told me before.
No, that's a theory. That's one potential theory, but there's also the theory of multiple flat ponds in a. This is the. This
Wait,
is,
no,
this is the
hold on.
problem.
I want you to finish that statement. Keep
Okay,
going.
let me finish. Well, then why did you
Multiple
say
flat ponds. Keep going.
This is the okay. So this is the problem. Let's
Sorry.
giggle some
Well,
more.
it sounds fun. Keep going.
So this is the problem. Is like this idea that like okay, the whole point of the flat Earth or people
I'm just
with-
busting your
the-
balls.
Thank you. The idea that the Earth is flat, or people that consider that the Earth might not be a globe, that we may have been lied to, or that the truth is hidden, are the most common answer to questions that have been assumed by people that believe that the Earth is a globe is, I don't know. Like on the flat Earth side, like what's beyond? Okay, so say that the Antarctic or Antarctica, that is the South Pole, right? It's this ice wall you can't get beyond. The North Pole is the center of the flat Earth. The Antarctic is the exterior wall that holds in the flat Earth, right? What's beyond that? What's beyond the wall? I don't know. There are questions that it's okay to say I don't know, but the problem with the mainstream science that we're taught and relativistic motion and gravity and these ideas that like, well, I don't know, there are anomalies, but we're just going to say, well, there's this variable, and we put the variable in, and the formula still works. Or
Can you give like an example of what you're talking about?
Sounds good.
Like an anomaly, like in the math of like the spinning of the Earth, or
if you look in history, the anomaly is gravity. So the heliocentric model existed before the idea that the Earth was
what's the heliocentric model?
that the sun is the center of the universe.
Okay.
The geocentric model is the idea that the sun and the stars revolve around the Earth. And what I meant to say was that the geocentric model existed before the heliocentric model, obviously, right? There are biblical connections. There's the idea that we look up and we see the sun and stars move around us. This is the observational understanding from a basic perspective that everything revolves around the Earth, right? We
Right.
look at the sky.
Yeah.
So this worked for a long time. We if you look at the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Mayans, these ancient cultures all believed that the Earth was flat, and yet they could predict eclipses. They could predict the movements of the stars. They could predict all these things in the heavenly bodies that happened for millennia. And the question is how? How did they do that? If now we think that the Earth is a sphere and the Earth is spinning and it's shooting through the universe and the solar system around us is spinning and also traveling at different speeds, and we're also spinning at a different angle and a different rate from the galaxy, and all these things are moving, and yet all the stars stay the same. We look throughout history and we can still predict these things based on these old models. That's an interesting question. And we base these ancient understandings off of the idea that the Earth is flat. But we look at it now and we say, these people were ignorant, and now we know because of computer programs, or because of there are anomalies that exist now. The whole development of gravity, for instance, the gravity had to exist. If we decide that the Earth is a sphere and we are not in the center, and the sun does not revolve around us and the stars do not revolve around us, we must have gravity if we're in a ball. So how does gravity work? Well, let's create the idea of gravity. Even though we already have the idea of buoyancy and density, things drop because they are more dense. You drop a brick in water, it's heavier, it's more dense than the water around it, it sinks. Is that because of gravity, or is it because the water around it is lighter? If a helium balloon floats high versus the air around it, is that because of gravity, or is it because the helium balloon is made up of helium, which is less dense than the oxygen around it or the air around it? This is all buoyancy and density. It has nothing to do with gravity. But if we're on a spinning ball in space, we have to create the idea of gravity. Even though on the Earth, you can't point to a massive rock that is gigantic enough that there are specks of dust that fly to it because of gravity, because it's so massive that there are things around it that shoot to it because of this magical thing called gravity. We can't.
What's the argument?
We can't measure or examine that on the Earth.
There's more variables than just shooting to a rock, though.
Yeah, like atmosphere.
What I'm saying is there's no example of gravity on the Earth. We can't measure that. There's no.
I think for this kind of conversation, we need.
I'm saying, like, what prove to me, or like even give me an example of gravity on the Earth.
Well, that's what I'm saying. For that argument, we would need someone here who understands these physics. Because I would think. Okay, then let's just
from my
brainwash
point. Let Chris finish.
From my brainwash point of view, I would think like, quote unquote brainwash. I would think like, okay, well, I would assume that it has to do with like atmosphere and
friction of atmosphere, sure.
Yeah, and things like that, like there's something to do with being protected within an atmosphere where if you're outside in a vacuum, gravity maybe works differently.
What about in the water?
In water, where things are more buoyant?
Right.
Yeah, well, why would properties not have an effect on gravitational forces?
Okay, so a balloon filled with helium.
Yeah.
It floats up. Why?
Right, I get it, because less dense. But you put a balloon of helium in water, what happens?
Where are the atmospheric conditions that are helping the helium fly higher in a balloon?
Because helium is lighter than the gases in the atmosphere.
Right, it's buoyancy, it's density.
Yeah. Okay.
What does that do with gravity?
I'm not saying it has anything to do with gravity. I'm saying
so we need gravity is my question. In our observational world around
maybe
us.
Outside of our atmosphere where there's no atmosphere gravity.
You're talking
that's
about
where you see
theoretical
the symptoms.
space if we're on a ball.
I mean, obviously we don't know these things.
But that's my point is gravity wasn't, okay, so theoretically gravity needed to be if we're on a ball, right? Because obviously if you're on a ball, things will fall off of it in space unless we have gravity. Thus, gravity was invented by Sir Isaac Newton because of the geocentric model or the heliocentric model.
It wasn't the apple on the head.
No, you think an apple dropped and he was like,
"Is that Newton?"
That's density. An apple falls because it's much denser than the air around it. I mean, that's obvious.
Was Newton gravity? Oh, gosh, I feel so dumb right now. But
we have to question our ideas of like what and I'm not saying I'm right. The
one more nose button.
I don't know the Earth is. I mean, I don't believe necessarily the Earth is flat, but I think it's a really compelling.
I just don't. I feel like I don't know enough about.
Yeah,
and that's the whole point. We have to question what we know.
What I wanted to say when you asked about an anomaly,
I feel like I'd have to go to school for like a while to even understand like any of this.
Well,
stuff.
and maybe and I think that's probably the argument that Jeremy and other flat Earth people make. But what I want to say,
you can make observations in your reality and gravity.
What you just said though doesn't explain.
You only need gravity for space, which we cannot observe. That's the only thing we need gravity for.
What disproves it?
You're saying because of density and like buoyancy that disproves gravity.
No, I didn't say we don't need gravity. In our world, we do not need the idea of gravity.
So it's not disproving anything.
What I'm saying is like, theoretically, we live in an environment, right, where things fall because they're more dense.
Isn't that part of what gravity is?
No.
It's not?
No.
Gravity, it is interesting. Gravity is still a very misunderstood or
even
not
Neil deGrasse
understood.
Tyson says he doesn't know what gravity is.
There's new theories about gravity, at least from
it's a theory.
Discovery Channel
Gravity's
documentary
a
I saw.
theory?
Yes,
it's still a theory.
It's a theory, just like evolution. It's a theory.
So like the last thing I
Google
heard
it.
I didn't know that it was.
When
still
you look
a theory.
at like M theory or the theory of like I think of like 11 different dimensions now, or string theory. Now there's also theories that gravity is actually like a leaking force from another.
Yeah,
it gets deep. All I was going to say, it is interesting. There are definitely anomalies. Like for example, I think Neil deGrasse, our good friend Neil. You can see him on an interview. Maybe we should play the clip where he's talking about the Earth. John, I don't know if you've seen this clip where he talks about
the oblate spheroid.
The Earth is not actually spherical; it's fatter in the middle.
So no, it's just more slightly below the equator. So it's an oblate. It's actually pear shaped.
It's pear shaped.
Which is every picture from NASA shows it a complete perfect circle.
Which is interesting. I mean, he is an astrophysicist. Like you think he would have the right information,
But
or
maybe
NASA
it's so
would have the right.
subtle that you
so
just can't see it.
it does seem like that those two things are conflicting. So there are definitely things that make you like scratch your head.
I'm totally open to understanding more. I'm not like, but again, that doesn't make the Earth flat.
No, I agree. I agree.
Even if it did make the Earth flat, I'm not against that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like.
And I'm not saying it. I'm not a religious believer that the Earth is flat. I just think there are these really
Sound
good
like a
questions. Well, I'm arguing like I'm being skeptical about the globe idea because we take all these things for
To
granted.
be honest,
You're
though,
also pushing
You don't
really
think
hard
that
for-
the Earth is round, though. Let's just.
You're not skeptical.
I
You
honestly do not know. I don't know the shape of the Earth. I just think
very vehement about the idea of it being
I am
flat.
because I feel like if someone says the Earth might be flat, there's this vitriol that's thrown at them that's just disgust. Oh, this troll. Like there are questions that we don't know. We take things for granted, like John not knowing that the gravity is a theory, or the
I'm
idea.
still looking up that right now.
Well, Google. We didn't know until supposedly was proven recently by the gravitational experiment that happened last year. That was initially
Might be 2
proven
years now.
false, or it was a false positive because the people in charge of the project.
It was a test the first time.
It was no, it was not a test according to the people that were
The first time it was.
the people that were involved in the experiment initially were measuring it. The people at the top threw in a false positive, and that's how they knew they could get it right. And then months later, there was a real evidence of a gravitational wave, and therefore it was proven.
I think it might have been a year or so later.
Okay, 6 months to a year,
Okay.
whatever.
Either way,
How lucky. My point is like, who are these people? Who's in control of the same people that do you really think we landed on the moon? Like there's a small group of people that that are in charge of the gravitational wave experiment that supposedly proved the existence of gravity. There are more people
Awesome.
involved in the NASA missions that lasted from 1968 to 1972.
Well,
In that area that we went to the moon how many times? Like a dozen times, and we haven't been back since. It's because
Trump is planning a mission to.
If you ask NASA, you look at NASA's explanations.
Make America moon again.
If you ask NASA, we
buy that shirt.
we lost the technology. We got rid of the technology, and we don't know how to get it back. That's their official explanation. We recorded over all the telemetric data.
That's
we
pretty
recorded
sketchy,
over
yeah.
the tapes. There's just no evidence anymore. But trust us, we did it. And look how great the footage is.
Can I just play devil's advocate for a second, though?
Please.
Like, where did you
man.
that's their official? I'm like, and I totally
From their mouth. Watching them actually say it.
Who are you talking about?
The explanation that we can't go back to the moon because we don't
we
have the
lost-
technology anymore.
They said it on a
Just
tape.
Google NASA.
I believe you. I'm not
no,
going to look it up
Well, no,
right now. I'm just
I don't
curious.
think they
Yeah.
said. I don't think they said they lost the technology. They lost the evidence. They lost the recordings.
Nope,
they
that's
lost
different.
the telemetric data.
They didn't lose it. They didn't lose the telemetric data. They recorded over the tape.
Yeah, but they didn't. The technology, like the
They
shuttles
lost
and
the
stuff.
technology.
What does that mean?
I think
they
said
lost the recordings
they
of the data.
destroyed the technology, and they can't. It would be too expensive, or they can't get it back. It was
They
one of those
destroyed
two.
the
They destroyed-
technology
what do
to go to
go to the moon.
What do you mean?
Just look it up on the internet. It's right there. Just Google it. We can edit it out.
So much angst. and
What do you want me to look up?
frustration.
NASA
destroying technology.
NASA says
Listeners, I hope you don't
we
feel as
destroyed
anxious as I
the
do.
technology to go to the moon. This is Don Pettit, a NASA astronaut.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
On a personal note, so the when did you get into the whole flat Earth idea? When did that strike a chord for you? Was that when you
I
started?
was painting. Yeah, I was,
You were
I was
painting.
painting a wall. In this room. I was painting the hallway, and I was listening to Higher Side Chats or some random paranormal or conspiracy video, as I do, and as I was painting and my hands were covered in paint, it switched over to an interview with Eric DeBay,
Oh,
and
the king of flat Earth.
and I couldn't turn it off because my hands were covered in paint. And he started talking, and I was like, oh, flat Earth, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, okay, the Earth is flat. This is like, how did I get to the bottom of the well on YouTube as this is just auto playing?
The proverbial bottom of the well.
Exactly. Like Alice's,
There's no bottom there
Alice's
anymore.
butthole in the Alice in Wonderland. She's
get
laying
any
down the
further
bottom.
down the rabbit hole.
She's passed out, and someone's just like digging in there. And so,
Oh, Lord.
So I'm painting, and I can't change the channel, or I can't change the video, and so I'm just like, I have to listen to it. It's just in the background. And I have like a
What
fair
do I
open
know?
mind because, we've seen Zeitgeist, we've gone in the rabbit hole a fair amount. So like, I can't like shut it off completely in my brain, but I'm hearing him say all these things and all these interesting anecdotes about the earth potentially being flat. And then as it goes, and as I'm painting these walls in this room, and I'm not getting high in the paint, so don't ask.
I was going to say that.
There are things that are coming up that are just like, wow, I'd never heard that before. Really? Like that, I need to look into that. And I start making mental notes like, okay, I need to check into this. Like there's no way. That's ridiculous. And it seriously took like 15, 20 minutes, half an hour before I started actually taking this seriously. But there was it broke down the walls of my preconceptions about the idea of the earth.
Definitely some interesting
not even in the
concepts there.
And the idea of the earth being flat is like that it's flat in space and it floats there. Why is it flat? There are all these questions that like people just, have no real understanding or conception of like how that could work. And there are all these questions and answers coming.
Well, it's also like
it makes more than anything, it makes you challenge what you thought you knew. And I think that's always fascinating to me is like, I always took these things for granted. I always took the idea of how space works, the idea of gravity, the shape of the earth. Like I believed in, I loved Apollo 13 was my favorite movie. I loved NASA. I wanted to work for NASA for a long time. But I saw some interesting questions about the moon landings that may have been faked. And after that, if you can't trust that source, then you can question other things with regards to NASA. And then if that's all we have then he said like, Google the earth from space. You won't find any images other than
composites
the
of
blue
the earth.
ball. The blue marble. I'm sorry, the blue marble. Other than that, you have CG composites or composites that are photoshopped.
There's
which
not
they
one
admit to
image,
photoshopping
yeah.
because they have to. Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's the last one for a while.
But that's my point. Like you hear this and you start to think like, well, I can prove this wrong. And so many people that get into the flat earth, like the situation or the flat earth community or whatever, or question flat earth, is they tried to prove it wrong and they kept finding these problems where they couldn't. And they proved it not necessarily right, but they proved the idea,
There's holes.
Their preconceptions that they had were not fully fleshed out. They were incorrect to a certain extent. And then they had to keep questioning. They got further down the rabbit hole. And then you have to admit that you do not know. And the only way you can know is if you trust NASA. Like that's the only way you can be sure.
Right.
Because everything else has
I think the danger comes in when
good argument.
When you start to present like even the opposite side, like
dangerous information.
No, not dangerous. I'm just saying like zealousness on either side. Like I think all these things we talk about, I think they're important to consider and to look at the evidence and to look at the discussions taking place
that's the whole
and
point.
to look at the sources. Like who do we know who are liars?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, like that's good to do, but at the same time, like we need to be careful not to get so wrapped up into one viewpoint.
Yeah, you have to be able to hold two ideas in your mind at one time and consider both.
Right.
Who was that? There's a name for that. Was that Plato or Socrates? The idea that like the mark of an educated man or a wise man is that he can hold two ideas in his head without believing either. And I think that's important. Like the idea.
It's funny because
to consider those ideas. Like I honestly, like at the same time, I think the earth could be flat. I think it could be round. It could be hollow. We might live in a simulation where it's not even real. Like these, why do I know? Like these are ideas that like are all completely possible to me. And I think the only reason that I get so passionate about flat earth is because that's the one where if you suggest it, there's this like disgust. And that we grew up with that. We grew up with globes since kindergarten. And the flat earth, we don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society. Let me be clear. Like Obama, anyone like referencing the idea of the flat earth, it was a punchline.
Obama referenced it?
Yeah. We don't have time for the meeting of Flat Earth Society. The idea that just like it's a punchline, you can't bring it up. And I'm not saying it's true, but we have these.
I don't even think we're at that point yet that you can't even bring it up because there's still such a fringe idea that like it's so not even mainstream.
Well, that's
yet.
the thing. Now, yeah. Well, my point is you can't bring it up in that it's so
you can't
laughable.
bring it up in the main.
It's so
like
laughable.
the Joe Rogan community. You can't even bring it up yet.
Yeah, it's so laughable.
Like it's so
I mean, you can, but it's make jokes.
And if there is compelling evidence that hasn't been disproven that I've seen.
I wish Eric Dubay and Neil deGrasse Tyson
I would have that
a
debate. I know.
Great.
man.
Well, that's my one problem because like I don't think the Earth is flat, but I don't know 100% that it's around either. Like I'm an honest person with
blade
myself,
spheroid.
but at the same time, it's like
Or pear-shaped.
why can't like if
Two
this is
really two of the best people to debate
Yeah,
it should
if it-
be able to debate
Absolutely.
it,
Yeah, if
and
it's
then you can make your own
right.
informed
If it's
decision.
become such an issue, my problem is like there is this constant like, oh, flat Earth person, I'm gonna make a joke about him and then mic drop, and then like, well, you didn't
and
really
that's why
explain anything.
I do defend you on that point. Like, I
Yeah.
think it would be amazing to see people
talk about
like the best flat earther that has the
Right.
most information and the most compelling arguments to go against
Absolutely.
astrophysicists.
If it's
the
so
problem-
obvious and we have so much science, then just put that guy
Yeah.
down with facts and
Right.
not fucking
Exactly.
belittle him
Absolutely.
and drop a fucking mic and be a fucking
Exactly. The problem is
hack.
like you create more people who are just want to believe that because it's like the opposite of the mainstream, and you don't have.
You have no evidence. Like go against B.O.B.
Well,
the rapper
maybe there,
who put stuff out.
Maybe there is evidence. That's not the point. The point is that they won't. Their argument is, well, I won't have this discussion. I won't have this debate because that just gives.
validate
I
it.
won't validate their
we don't
argument.
talk to terrorists.
Right.
Right.
Well, how about you validate the argument and then destroy it with fact?
Well, that's the whole point about debate. Like
Yeah.
your
Right.
ideas will look silly if you have the
And if you're
material to back it
and
up.
if you're scared to debate, it makes the other argument even
That's
stronger.
why
Even if you're
social
right, it
justice
makes-
warriors don't debate is because they don't have any actual
and
facts.
that's
to back
why
anything up.
Globers are so afraid. to have the
Globers.
debate.
Well, I would like to. I would like to see like the Eric. Is he the official like
Eric to be,
top notch flat earther
I feel
dude?
he is.
He has a lot of weird
to me,
videos that
he is
do.
like the Terrence McKenna of the globe Earth.
Well, I would not
Except-
compare him to Terrence
well,
McKenna at all.
Okay, I'm just speaking about like intellectualism, like
Yeah.
the ability to retain
Not
information
character.
and communicate. Okay, yeah, sure. He wasn't like an awesome, friendly hippie, but he.
No, I just feel like doesn't he like he bashes all the other flat
Yes,
earthers?
he is definitely.
He dresses in
calls people
drag
shills,
and like makes fun of
but
them
he's
and dances
but
around.
As far as having a grasp on the concept, he's extremely
Right, no, I would agree,
intelligent
yeah.
and
But
prolific.
But he has some other
intelligent.
like side personalities that
Yeah.
makes him
He
seem
calls
a
people
little
out.
sketchy.
He calls people out for being shills who may or may not be.
and he'll do impressions of them, like wear dresses and like make.
So he's not the
wear a wig
most
and-
No,
like
he's not-
mature person.
He's not perfect, but
But he's intelligent. He, does,
but
he
has-
makes good points for
but
sure.
there are a lot, and this is the thing. There are globe kids, as I like to call them, in my condescending way.
We call them globe
There are
trotters.
people that are so believe in the globe Earth or the globe, the idea of the Earth being globe, who I respect because they will go against debate and they'll go on YouTube and say this is why you're wrong or this is why I think that the Earth is a globe, and they'll actually go point by point and put out evidence. But people like Bill Nye, who's an actor, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's an actor and also supposedly a science communicator, they won't have the
He is
discussion.
an astrophysicist, though, isn't he?
Sure,
Neil deGrasse, yeah,
yeah,
intelligent
but
guy.
he's also an actor. But like the idea that
Well,
like,
he's a public figure,
right, who acts. But
Well, I mean,
What do you mean axe?
what do you mean?
well, I mean,
like-
he's in shows and does his acting.
What are you talking about?
yeah, I'm not sure what you mean.
He was in Stargate. He's in a lot of shows as himself, right? Just being like cameos or whatever.
I wouldn't call him an
actor.
actor.
He
I think
plays
he's a
himself.
public. He's a professional.
Right.
He's a public speaker.
What he is, he's a science quote communicator who doesn't really communicate much information other than like ideas. Like there's no.
I would agree with you.
And,
on that.
and that's my problem is like. I'm sorry. Has he presented to you an equation that you really felt?
No,
compelled?
I used to watch his Star Trek.
I
or
did too.
Star Talk.
Where he floated
podcast.
around in a space tube and it pointed at
No.
things
You're,
that were
no,
awesome
you're talking
in
about
theoretical
you're
space.
talking about the remake of the Cosmos. I'm talking about his podcast where he would sit down for 3
Okay.
hours with a guest and talk about astrophysics.
theoretical science and
I'm saying
that's fine.
The guy's definitely not like just some moron.
I know,
Yeah,
obviously he's not, but I'm saying.
I mean, he's not
but
like.
then if you're so intelligent and you can just destroy someone's argument by giving him some facts, do it.
Well, I don't think that we fully understand what happened between those people at this point.
I'm saying
We just know
at
that Bill
any
Nye is a
point-
weirdo. That's all we know.
At any
Well,
point,
Bill Nye, fuck that guy.
Bill- okay, so
Sorry
I've
for all
seen-
you
Nye is
listeners
a
out
fucking-
there. I grew up
multiple-
with Bill Nye too, but watch that.
Nye-
What's that video?
Okay,
He's
first of all, how about
stain on humanity?
Okay, but you like but Neil deGrasse Tyson, politics before science,
Well, he's an actual astrophysicist,
right? Who puts politics and
I would agree with you, but
And before
Bill
science.
Nye was not any of those things. He was an actor.
Absolutely.
He was an
He was a
actor.
comedian.
He has
Nye was-
no real
the
official
science
degree.
guy was a character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say Neil deGrasse Tyson probably has a little bit more information on the subject.
He's
lot
an
more,
astrophysicist, whereas
yeah.
Bill Nye was a mechanical engineer. That was his degree.
Yeah.
and an actor.
I brought up Bill Nye just to because I have to use the bathroom. I thought we could go on a break, and I wanted to leave it on a joke about Illinois.
I think we're probably going to wrap this one up.
Let's wrap it up.
I mean, we're a good 2.5 hours in at this point. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing out. If you made it this far,
trust your textbooks.
You deserve a sticker.
Yeah, you're gonna get a little
gold sticker.
Make love to your
if you made it this far, send us your email. Go to beliefhole.com. I don't need to say www anymore. I don't think that's
You made it this far. Go make love to your wife tonight.
Go to http.
Or if you're alone, or if you're single and lonely, like all three of us.
That's actually
pull up
not
your
true.
most favorite.
No, that's two of us.
Pornographic website.
The third of
and remember a good time from your youth.
Or go home, make love to your wife, and then whisper sweetly in her ear as she orgasms. Beliefhole.com.
It's getting really gross.
The flat earthers go to beliefhole.com and support sweet dreams.
They said bleed hole.
Go to bleedhole.com. Wow.
Parallel Universe, that's our podcast.
Anyways,
all right, good night, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode
Sorry
of
for everything. Enjoy.
Let me finish it off.
Your day.
Let me finish it off.
Really?
Yeah, because this is all kind of
cut
chaos.
off. Podcast.
We want to thank you for listening to this episode of Belief Hole. A little crazy, a little chaotic, and we touched a whole different, a whole litany of topics that may or may not relate to each other or shed any light on any truth
Need
at
to be
all.
expounded upon.
However, we did talk about Pauly Shore and Encino Man, which is a good flick you should catch. So join us next time when we discuss other stuff.
That might have been the worst outro I've
Hey,
ever heard
some
in
of
my
that was
life.
good. Some of that was good.
Yeah, it wasn't completely terrible.
Join us next time when
Good
we
night,
talk
guys.
about other crazy
Thanks for listening.
nonsense and gobbledygook.
Well, we'll probably cut it
Tune
off
in next
before
year.
this, but
Okay.
Tune in next year. Goodbye.
I just want to talk to you.